Hey guys, it's Riverman, Community Manager for Project Hatchet Studios, and I'm here to bring you an updated startup tutorial for the Hatchet H-60 mod. This video is long overdue, and due to recent demand after our latest update, I'm going to bring you a new tutorial video for the startup just to show you how to get the helicopter started real quick. This will be a unscripted format as opposed to my previous tutorial videos, so just bear with me. Alright, so this is the cockpit of the UH-60. I'm going to go ahead and enable free look here. To orient you to the cockpit, we have our MFDs. These are going to be our primary flight displays, as well as our engine pages, FLIR pages, and weapons control, etc., etc. So we have MFD number 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. This is our standby instrument panel, our ESIS. So in the event that you lose your flight instruments on the primary flight displays, you can use this to navigate yourself back home. Here's the clock. We have our lower console here. It has various amounts of switches. Also has our number 1 FMS and number 2 FMS. Number 1 and number 2 refer to the side of the helicopter. So number 1 is left, number 2 is right. Up here we have our upper console. This is where most of your switches are going to be. And your engine controls as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the lower console. Skipping over the move to cabin interaction here and your stores jettison. We got our parking brake, which is set. Come over here, we got our EGI switches. So number 1 EGI, number 2 EGI, turn those on. These switches currently have no functionality, but they may in the future. So if you want to start that positive habit transfer now, you can. But this will not affect anything. That is pretty much the only switches that you can move on the bottom here. Come up, check your key, make sure it's off. We're going to come up to the upper console, to the lighting panel. Here you have your upper console light, your lower console light, and your instrument panel lights. So upper console will illuminate the text up here, lower console on the lower console, and instrument lights will illuminate the MFDs, the flight director, and the ESIS, as well as the master warning panels. So set your lighting as you need to. You'll come up here, you'll have your collision lights and your position lights. So generally collision lights you'll keep on during the day and the night. Position lights generally are only used during the nighttime. So you set those as you want them. There's only the day collision lights like Arma allows, so it's just a white light, but normally this would switch between a white strobe and a red strobe. So coming up, these switches don't do anything, but this is the normal flow. So vibration control and cargo hook settings, can't use those. Alright, standby instrument switch will be off for now. Battery switches will both be off. APU generator switch will be off. We're going to turn our main generator switches on to set us up for engine start later. We're going to come down, external power switch, can't use that. APU control switch will be off. Fuel pump switch will be off. Air source heat start switch will go to APU. We're going to come down to the fuel boost pumps, which will stay off. They have no functionality in this, so stop using these. And we're going to make sure that all our levers are in the proper position. Can't do anything with the T-handles, but all these should be full back. After your switches are done, we're going to go to batteries 1 and 2, and we'll turn those on. So right off the bat, you'll see on the cold start capsules here, we have a battery good indication. So that's just another visual indication that your batteries are on. Batteries also only power the number 2 FMS and the number 3 MFD. So you can get some quick info here while the batteries are on. You can knock out some quick setup in your FMS here on battery power, but you only have about maybe 15 to 20 minutes maybe on battery power alone. Can't remember which we set it up for, but it's not very long. So after that, we're going to come and start our APU. So we'll go fuel pump switch to APU boost, APU control switch on. We got our awesome new APU startup audio thanks to Aaron. Now we'll go to our cold start capsules. We'll see APU is on as well. You can also see it on your MFD in the advisory page, which is the white box. You'll see APU on. Currently, we're still only on battery power, and you can tell because all the MFDs are off and the FMS is off. Come up to the APU generator switch, and we will turn this on. You should be turning the generator switch on after the APU is actually on. Also, positive habit transfer for later down the line when we add some more constraints to your startup sequence. Alright, now you can see that we are on APU generator power. So we have AC power now. APU gen on advisory is here, and all our MFDs have come alive. We'll go ahead and turn our standby instrument switch on. That gets rid of our standby instrument switch not armed caution here. And that's pretty much it as far as before starting engines is concerned. At this point, you can go ahead and configure your FMS with however you need to configure it. You got your nav page, you can set up your maps, JVMF, all that stuff like that. All features that can be covered in a later video if we need to. Now, one thing I want to point out, just because I know we've gotten some messages about it, you're going to have these Gen 1 fail, Gen 1 and 2 fail, and hydraulic pump 1 and hydraulic pump 2 fails as well. Okay, these cautions are normal, and they are normal for when the engines are not turning. The generators and the hydraulic pumps are engine driven, so they will only operate when the engine is at fly. Otherwise, you would be operating off a backup hydraulic pump, which is not simulated currently, but that's what you would be operating off of. So, that is normal, don't worry about that. You can also clear those master cautions by pressing to reset. They'll go from the inverse video of black on yellow to yellow on black. That's how you know you've acknowledged the caution. And now we're ready for engine start. So, first thing we're going to do, we're going to set our fuel levers to direct. So we got direct on 1, direct on 2. Number 1 fuel selector is a little bit hidden behind the number 1 PCL. But you can snag it if you just aim at the right spot. Alright, we're going to come down in our ever elusive ignition key. This is one of the main things you should check if you guys are not getting engine start. Okay, make sure you have your ignition switch on. Okay, so now we have spark. We need 3 things for engine combustion. We need spark, we need fuel, and we need air. And that's why we set our air source switch to the APU. It'll be drawing air from the APU. So, once you have air, fuel, and spark, you're ready to start. So we'll go ahead and start on the number 1. So the starter buttons engage and disengage the starters. So if you ever need to disengage the starter for whatever reason, if you're going to start an engine, you need to turn it off. If I hit the starter here, you'll see I'll have engine 1 starter on caution. You see my NG is slowly rising. My blades will start to turn, but they will only cap at a certain rotor RPM. If I need to disengage the starter, all I have to do is hit the engine starter button again. The caution will disengage. You'll see NRs going down, and the rotors will stop. So we'll go ahead and engage it again. Starter engaged. NG's on the rise. Blades are on the go. TGT is below 30, advancing number 1 to idle. Now we have light off, we have TGT on the rise, we have NP coming alive as well as NR. This will be going up to around 50% or so. Once that X goes away, that means the engine is now self-sustaining and you'll see the starter automatically dropped out. That's a good start at 1. Blades are turning at idle. Go ahead and engage the number 2 starter. Got the starter engaged, we got a rise of NG, TGT below 30, advancing number 2 to idle. And we got light off, pressure, or sorry, no pressure yet, TGT and NP2. You won't see pressure and temperature readings here. And TGT spikes around 600 or so, comes down. Alright, let's get started on 2. Both engines are started. We are now sitting pretty at idle. Now you'll see the hydraulic pump cautions have gone away because the engines are now driving them. But we still have generator fails because we're still on the APU generator. We'll get gen swap once we get the engines to fly. So, that being said, we'll go 1 and 2 to fly. Gen cautions have gone away. A little earlier than they should, but it's alright. And NR is a little high, but I believe I'm in standard flight model right now, so some of the things can be a little wonky. But everything's looking good. We're now at fly. We had our gen fail cautions go away. Torque is looking good. NR is about 100%, so it's looking good. Okay, so now that we are at fly and we've got our good gen swap, we can go ahead and turn the APU off. The APU does burn fuel. We still need to set it up so it burns out of the number 1 fuel cell, but the APU does burn fuel, so you will have a slightly higher burn rate if you leave the APU on. Alright, so we'll go ahead and turn our fuel build switch off, and APU control switch will turn off. Cool capsule light goes away, as well as the advisory. So both APU and APU gen advisory go away. You do not have to turn off the APU generator switch when you turn off the APU. That can stay on, and it's preferable that you leave that on, because if you have to do an emergency APU start, that's one less switch you have to set, as well as the air source switch. So if you leave those two in where they're at, all you have to do is hit the fuel pump switch and the APU control switch. It's just faster that way. Alright, and at that point, you are now started up. So, once your mission complete, shutdown. It's much quicker than that. It's pretty much the reverse of everything. So, if you're spooling down either to wait for a follow-on mission or you are shutting down completely for mission termination, you'll go to fuel pump switch APU boost, APU control switch on. Get our boot up. We come down, we can see now we get APU on and APU generator on in the advisory panel. So now the generator is ready for gen swap. So you're going to see a little bug here. So we're going to turn the generator switches, the main generator switches off. We should get a gen fail caution up here, but we don't. But you are on APU generator power, so everything will stay up. If these are off and you don't have your APU on and you bring these PCLs to idle or below, you will black out the whole cockpit except for the things powered by battery, which is number 3 MFD and number 2 FMS. So, alright, so we got our APU on, we have a good gen swap, it's still good. So we'll go ahead and pull the PCLs to idle. Now you'll see that we'll get our gen fail cautions. And shutdown is much simpler because we don't simulate a lot of the stuff you wait for on shutdown currently. So there's nothing stopping you from bringing them straight to off if you want to, but I'm just showing it to you out of habit. So engines will spool down about 50 to 60% NR. We'll go ahead and come off on 2. Now we get the X. All our indications go away. Come off on 1. Bring the fuel selectors off. We got our X. NR's coming down. And that's your indication that you're in standard flight model because the blades will stop. If you are in advanced flight model, the blades will continue to spin until you exit the aircraft. Go ahead, standby instrument switch off. We can turn the EGIs off, even though it won't do anything. It's resetting the master caution again, if it bothers you. And the acronym we like to use in the industry is GO for a beer, which is generator, it's APU generator. 4, it's going to be fuel pump. A, APU control switch on. And beer will be your batteries. So GO for a beer. And everything shuts off. and that is the startup and shutdown of the UH-60 in the Project Hatchet mod. The startup applies to all variants, the MH and the HH, and the only difference really is the equipment on board, which we'll go over in a different video. Additionally, with the startup, if you go to your add-on options here, you'll see we have a simple startup checkbox here. So if you uncheck it, in your scroll wheel, you'll see that we do not have an option for an automatic startup. This is a setting that you can implement on your server so you can prevent pilots from using it, but if you want them to be able to use it, then you just go back into your add-on options, enable the simple startup, hit OK. Now you go in your scroll wheel, automatic engine startup. This is meant to be used as a learning tool so you can see where all the switches are if you decide to not watch my amazing video. And I will show you that at work here. And it will highlight all of the levers you need to hit. That torque warning is normal. That's just part of it. Starting up really fast. And now you're ready to fly. The only stipulation, and I'm just going to turn my game audio down for this so I don't drown myself out. So we go into third person. If you use the automatic startup, it will apply a student driver sticker onto the engine cowlings and the tail as a way to discourage excessive use of it, and it is not removable once it is applied. So, that being said, one thing, I'm going to turn my audio back up before I forget. And one thing before I forget, if you guys have any issues or if you open a support ticket in our Discord, one thing that will help us out a lot is if you open IVHMS, which is on your scroll wheel here. If you click that, all screens will open up to the same screen. This will give us some information to make sure that you are have all the correct settings and you have the proper dependencies applied. It's very basic info. It's not gonna guarantee a fix for your issue, but as long as you send us a picture or screenshot of the IVHMS, that will help us out. It is designed so that you can get it while the aircraft is running, or you can get it while the aircraft is off, or if interactions are for some reason unavailable, it should still display as a troubleshooting method. But if it doesn't, we'll guide you through it and we'll let you know what to do. This will have the version, the time, date. It'll tell us if the framework is actually loaded, if the aircraft is running. Similarly, if you go into your add-on options, you have your Overtorque hints, which you saw earlier when we did the automatic startup. If you enable your debug messages here, you hit OK. Should see. So we'll exit the IVHMS real quick. Okay, and you see our debug messages on the bottom right. There we go. That's what we needed. Alright, so I'm just going to shut these off. Right off the bat. Alright, so if you are ever curious about why your aircraft isn't starting up, you can use this as a debug output to let you know if all the switches are in the proper place. So currently, what I'll do is I'll turn off the ignition switch. Okay, and we got our APU on. We'll go fuel levers are off. We'll just go into the state that we would presume that you would be in before your engine starts. So, say you moved fuel levers. Maybe you only grabbed the one. You can see on the right side you have battery switch states. You have your APU power switch states, fuel pump, APU generator, the engine generators, air source, and so on and so forth. So all of these will reflect the current state of those switches. So if you look at the appropriate switch, then you can decide whether or not it's supposed to be working. So as long as those things are off, then generally means that you're missing something. So for example, you see that the battery bus has power, the AC bus has power, and DC bus has power. So everything should start. However, you can see the APU is on. You can see our engine 1 fuel lever is off, and both power levers are on. I can move the number 2 to idle, but then I can't hit the starter. If I try to engage the starter, even if I have the ignition switch on, if I try to engage the starter while it's in idle, you see that the starter does not engage. So if I do ignition switch, you'll see that the MIK switch state on the very top is off. That is usually the most common thing that keeps you from starting the engines. So it's kind of at the top there for you. But you'll see when I switch it, it changes the state. So that is another way to figure out on your own if you why your engines aren't starting. But a screenshot of these things as well will help if you're having issues debugging. So we'll go ahead and shut everything down. Generator switch is off, standby switch off. Bring that back, bring that back. Switch is off. And we'll go for a beer. Alright, and that pretty much concludes the startup tutorial for the H-60 for update 0.7.1. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us in our Discord, open up a ticket, or just ask a question in general, and we'll try to help you out as best we can. But hope this video helps. If you guys have any issues with the video, or if you want me to go over any other systems in depth like this, let me know, and I will get to it when I can. Alright guys, take care.